Today's video is going to feature a casino we've actually been to before on the vlog, at least a couple of times. I actually haven't been here in at least 6 months, if not more. And the reason why is that my bread and butter is pretty much the 510 at Morongo, but I feel like if I always vlog from the same place and the same game, the channel has a risk of becoming stale fairly quickly. For that reason, I like to switch it up, and so here we are. Can you guys guess where this is, by the way? Maybe if I put it in like big bold letters right in the middle of the screen, that might help. Right, so Lake Elsinore Casino. Last time I was here, it was over 110 degrees outdoors. They still have an outdoor gaming setup, so it was borderline torture. This time it's a much more manageable 75 degrees. The biggest game they got is 5-5 no limit with a $1,000 max, so that's what I'll be hopping into today. Real quick, before we get into the cards though, I wanted to let everyone know that next Saturday, April 3rd, I'll actually be playing on my first ever live stream. It's gonna be in Austin, Texas at a place called The Lodge. For those of you locals, you're familiar. If you're not, it's a really cool card room in the Austin area that recently created their own live stream. They invited me over to play on it, so that's where I'll be. It's gonna be a 5-5 uncapped game. Should play fairly large, especially if the rumors I hear about Texas poker are true, but I'm looking forward to it. Anyway, for now, the plan is 5-5 right back here at Lake Elsinore. Let's go play some cards. Right, so back at it here, guys, playing some 5-5 no limit this time, and there's nothing else to say. Let's get right into the first hand, which is a big one. We look down at pocket kings facing a limp from early position. I raise it up to $25 and get called by the cutoff, button, small blind, and the limper. I know a lot of people complain about getting big pairs and going multi-way, but I look at it more of it's probably a sign that we're in a good game. So we go 5 ways to a flop, which eliminates all doubt of us not winning this hand. Comes down king 10-8 with 2 spades. Flopping top set multi-way, the stuff that dreams are made of. When the action checks to me on a board like this, I'll definitely continue betting. I put out a bet of $75. The cutoff makes the fold, and now the button decides that 75 is not enough. But instead he announces all in for $340. Action folds back to me. Quite a straightforward call, I might say. So we're off to a run out here, facing an all-in, the first hand that we play. Turn card is the 9 of clubs, river card is the deuce of spades. Pretty terrible run out as it completes all the flush draws and probably every straight draw as well. And indeed we're up against one of those when our opponent shows queen jack. I guess maybe I spoke too soon about winning this hand, huh? A little while later we get some chance for redemption when I look down at ace king under the gun. I make it $20 to go, and pretty much everyone and their mother makes the call. So we're multi-way once again to a flop of 7-6-3 all diamonds. Certainly mixed feelings about this one since we flopped a nut flush draw, but at the same time, it's a pretty terrible board for us and probably pretty good for everyone else. So I'm going to start with a check when the action checks to me, and the action gets all the way to a middle position player who bets $35. Pretty small bet. The cutoff makes the call, and when the action gets back to me, I guess you could put in a raise, but seems much better to just call here, given that, like I said, the board isn't too good for us, so we wouldn't really be representing that much with a raise. And also, we're just being laid such a good price to improve our hand. So anyway, I flick in the $35, and the player on my left calls as well. So 4 ways here to a turn card, which looks like a good one. It's the ace of clubs. So not only do we have a flush draw now, but we also have top pair. However, it's still very possible that we're beat. So I'm just going to check it once again. This time the middle position player who bet the flop decides to check it, but now the cutoff decides it's time for him to bet. And not a tiny bet like we saw on the flop, but instead $250, a pot-sized bet. We have such a good hand, and there's plenty of cards that will improve us, so Nothing to do but continue with a call. That's what I do. This time everyone else gets out of the way. So we're heads up to a river card here, which is the 6 of spades. All things considered, it looks like a pretty good card to me. At this point, I realize my opponent only has like 200 or 220 bucks. And there's really nothing to do but move all in, I think. If he's got air, I don't expect him to continue bluffing, given that the pot is so big and it's very unlikely I'll fold. So I decide, since I'm not going to fold, I'd rather just target hands that we're beating that could check back, such as maybe a pair of aces or some other non-believing one pair type of holdings. Doesn't seem to matter too much though, because my opponent folds fairly quickly. In the next hand, there's 2 limpers before I look down at Queen Jack of clubs. I raise it up to $35 and only the limpers make the call. So 3 ways here to a flop of Queen 5-4 with a flush draw out there. When the action checks to me, I think you can make a case for both betting and checking. This time I decided to check it back, since if we only bet with good hands and check with bad ones, seems like a pretty predictable pattern, right? So we're off to a turn card here, which is the 10 of hearts, which introduces a good amount of new draws. So when the first player bets $20 and the second player calls, I feel like we have the best hand often enough to raise for value here. Even though we only have top pair with a mediocre kicker, I feel like there's a good chance that both of my opponents are drawing here, especially for such a small size. So I make it $90 to go. The first player makes the call and the second player folds. Heads up to a river, which is the 8 of spades. Not necessarily the worst card, but not really the best one. It does complete a fair amount of straight draws like 7-6 or Jack-9, but at the same time all the flush draws miss. So anyway, he checks it to me, and I think it's best to just check it back here. We're probably not getting value from worse. And like I said, I think my opponent has a draw, so either he missed or we're way behind now. So I check it back, and he says, "You got it, I missed." All right, very nice. Queen Jack is good. Moving on to the next hand, we see a limper before a middle position player raises it to $25. The small blind makes the call, and I'm in the big blind looking down at pocket tens. Seems fine to flat call here, but I think a raise is much better, especially given that the small blind called. So I raise it up to $105. Limper gets out of the way, the original raiser calls, and the small blind calls again. So 3 ways here to a flop of 8-7 deuce with 2 clubs. Always a good flop when you re-raise pre-flop with pocket tens and flop an overpair. So when the small blind checks it, I'm going to continue betting. I put in a bet of $110. The original raiser folds and the small blind makes the call. Seems like a fairly good result, given that we're now going to be in position for the rest of the hand. We're heads up to a turn card here, which is the 3 of diamonds. This time when the small blind checks it to me, I think it's a good idea to check it back, even though I don't hate betting here. And the reason I say that is we would be checking back a lot of hands like ace-king or ace-queen, and it seems likely that my opponent called on the flop with not a whole lot, given that we bet fairly small. So it seems like a good opportunity to get a little bit sneaky and play a river in position with an under-repped hand. So having said that, I check it back, and we're off to a river card here, which is the 7 of clubs. And I actually think this is a fairly good card, because even though the flush comes in, I don't expect the small blind to have a lot of suited combinations, given that he called a re-raise pre-flop and also didn't really seem to consider check raising the flop. Also, it reduces the somewhat small possibility that we're up against 8-7 suited or pocket sevens. So when my opponent leads $210 now, I mean, yeah, we'll be losing some percentage of the time, but not nearly enough to make me fold. So I put in the call, and my opponent announces ace high, specifically ace queen. So another one going our way, and it seems the check on the turn got us a little more value here at the end. Happy with the result. Up to this point, I'd actually been playing in the must-move table, and now we get transferred to the main game. In the first interesting hand at this new table, we see an under-the-gun limp before looking down at king-queen. I raise it up to $25 and get called by the small blind, big blind, and the limper. So 4 ways in position to a flop of queen 5-4 with 2 spades and 1 heart. Action checks all the way to me, and like I say many times, I think this is a spot where it's totally fine to mix. Being that it's 4 ways, I'm not going to be betting too many holdings here, so I think it's fine to check back top pair with the backdoor flush draw. So that's what I do this time. We see a 9 of spades on the turn. Small blind checks once again, but this time the big blind does not. He puts out a bet of $50. The under the gun limper makes the fold. I put in the call. Nothing else to do here, I think. Small blind folds. Heads up here to a river card, which is the 10 of clubs. This time the big blind checks it over to me, and I'm pretty sure he just has one pair. I mean, sure, we'll be beat sometimes, but not frequently enough to not make me want to go for some value. So I size up a little bit to make it look like I missed a flush draw or I have ace king with a spade. I don't know, something like that, right? So I put in $175, and my opponent calls in like under a second. At this point, I feel like we might not be good, but when I show it, indeed we are, and we're taking this one down. Given how fast he called on the river, I guess I could have bet even larger, but whatever. In this next hand, the straddle's on, there's an early position limp, and it looks like the poker gods are giving us a chance for redemption with pocket kings. I raise it up to $50 in the hijack. The cutoff makes the call, the straddler makes the call, and the limper makes the call. So much like the very first hand of the session, we're going multi-way with pocket kings, and yet again, we flop top set on a draw-heavy board. King 9-8 with 2 hearts. It's kind of weird how similar this hand is to the first one, but I'm just going to try to not think about that and play it straight up. So the action checks to me. This time I bet $75, and only the early position limper makes the call. Unlike the first hand, though, we see a much better turn card this time around. It's the 9 of clubs, giving us top full house, the dream. We can only lose to pocket 9s, and if he's got that hand, God bless him, he can have all my chips. When he checks it to me, I'm just going to keep betting for value since there's plenty of draws still available, and I don't expect him to fold on this turn card. So I make it $175, and luckily my opponent does not let it go. He puts in the call once again. So we're off to a river card here in a pretty sizable pot, which comes to 6 of clubs. I was kind of hoping for a heart since I feel like he could easily have a flush draw the way the hand's played. But it seems like maybe he doesn't have that because now he decides to lead for $300. I am not making this stuff up, guys. At this point, he only has around $600 behind. And I could go into a really complicated explanation as to why I did what I did. But I'll just cut to it and let you guys know that I decided to go all in for his remaining $600. My opponent does not snap fold, which is very nice since I feel like maybe he could have played this way with a missed draw. But now that he's thinking about it, it seems he's actually got something. But is it good enough to call an all in? Well, after about 30 seconds, my opponent decides that it is. As he puts in the call, I show it, and of course, we're scooping this fairly large pot. And it feels like poetic justice after that first hand of the session. Moving on to the next hand, which isn't really filled with much action, but I just thought it was kind of funny. There's a middle position open to $30. Late position makes the call, and I look down at pocket kings again in this small blind. I raise it to $155, and both of my opponents call. I'd give you guys 3 guesses as to what the flop was, but you probably only need one. King high with a flush draw. I don't know what the hell is going on here. At this point, if I ever get kings and I don't flop a set, it's going to feel kind of weird. Anyway, I continue betting for $175, but both of my opponents unfortunately make the fold this time. So not a ton of action, but again, how crazy is that, huh? In the last hand of the night, things get a little bit weird. Okay, so there's a limper, the cutoff makes it $35, and I look down at ace king on the button. I make it $115. The big blind decides on a call. This is where the hand starts to get a little bit strange. People will cold call raises out of the blinds. There's a lot of limpers, hands go multi-way. I mean, it sounds great to me, but it can get a little bit tricky to navigate sometimes. Anyway, the original raiser makes the call as well, so we're going to go 3 ways here to a flop of 10-7 deuce with 2 clubs. When the action checks all the way to me, I'll just go on record right now and say, you should almost always be checking in this spot. There's 2 other guys in the hand that could very easily have something on this kind of board, and also we have pretty much absolutely nothing. Having said that, I haven't really had a bluff all day long, and I've been showing down good hands all day, so I'm going to start with a small bet here and just sort of see what develops. I put in $120. The big blind makes the call, which is unfortunate because I figured he either had like the same hand, maybe ace queen or ace jack suited, or pocket pairs like jacks, 10s, 9s, maybe pocket 8s. And now that he calls the flop, it seems like those ace high hands are probably out of the question. The cutoff makes the fold, so we're off to a turn card here, which is the 9 of clubs. This time when he checks it to me, I feel like it's pretty bad to continue betting. Even with overpairs, I'd probably check on this turn card, so with ace-king, I'll definitely be doing that. The river card is the 4 of diamonds, so we find no help at all, and we arrive here with ace-king high. I expect it to be good about 10% of the time, but when he checks it to me, I just don't think that this is a board where we should expect to see a lot of folds, especially given that we bet the flop, check the turn, and now what? We're going to suddenly represent an overpair? Seems like way too much of a Hail Mary. So I just decided to check it back. Not really in love with how I played this hand, but somehow our opponent gives it the head shake and doesn't look like he has much. I tell him, dude, I only have ace high. And he says, you're good. So I flip it over. I've played with this guy a few times. No need to make him show. And we're taking this pot down. Not really sure how that happened, but not going to ask any questions. Just going to win this pot and forget all about it. At this point, I've been playing for a very long time and was getting pretty sleepy. So I decided to color up and call it a day. Hope you guys like those hands. Well guys, here we are once again, another finale to another successful vlog. Won quite a bit of money today, especially considering that it was just a 5-5 game. Very thrilled with that result, and even more thrilled that the vlog upswing continues. Anyway, today was more of the same, just running extremely good, no difficult decisions whatsoever. And really no complaints to be had, aside from, I guess, the first hand where not that many hands in today's video, but it was kind of out of my control. I actually played very long, I think 10 hours or so. It's like almost 3 in the morning right now. Also, not a lot of opportunities to bluff, which, I mean, I guess that's fine, but I do like to throw in at least 1 or 2 per video. Didn't really get the chance today. I guess we'll have to make up for that in Texas. So next time you guys hear from me, it will be a Texas vlog. I think I'm going to have 2 vlogs out from this trip. So for those of you who like when I travel, you have those to look forward to. And that's it for today, guys. I'm exhausted, so time to drive home and get some sleep. As always, thank you so much for the support. If you watched this video all the way through, if you gave it a thumbs up, you know I appreciate it. And I'll see you guys next time. Until then, good luck at the tables. Peace.